Here's my concern. And my concern is that most people are obsessed and concerned about multiple retakes. They're concerned that it's going to look bad. And the message needs to be loud and clear.
Yeah.
Take the test as many times as you need to get the best score you can get. Hello and welcome to episode 487 of the Thinking LSAT podcast. I'm Ben Olson. With me is Nathan Fox. We're the co-founders of LSATdemon.com and the LSAT Demon Daily podcast. Nathan, this is going to air on Monday, December 30th. So tomorrow is New Year's Eve, and then we have 2025. Do you ever make New Year's resolutions?
I don't think so, really. I don't know. Maybe once in a while I would make. What about you?
No.
Are you a resolution guy?
If I want to make a goal, I make it now or make it today or write it down right when it comes to my mind. I don't wait. Oh, let's wait till January 1st. And then this year is going to be really good. But
I'm a terrible goal setter. I just don't even have goals. And I probably should. I don't know. I should probably, maybe I would be more productive, happier, more fulfilled or something if I had specific goals and set about achieving them.
Yeah.
Like looking back, I've done quite a lot, but I don't do it in any kind of organized way at all. So I have a feeling that like doing some work on it and like actually thinking about what I want. But, you know, the hard part is figuring out what you want.
Yeah, I mean, goals are interesting. I think that your results, right, are a lot of times the result of just daily habits.
Mm-hmm.
And so oftentimes I find myself not necessarily setting long-term goals, but trying to tweak what I do daily because that's going to have some sort of long-term impact.
I don't have daily routines either. I don't.
You don't know. Well, you do, right? It just may not be deliberate.
Kinda.
I mean, you wake up and it's not like.
Right. Yeah. But even that is all just very helter skelter. I don't have like a morning routine. You know, I mean, I brush my teeth before I go anywhere.
Yeah. Well, that's good to hear.
I don't have an evening routine.
Yeah.
You know, I brush my teeth before I go to bed.
Yeah.
But
okay. Well, there's a routine. You have that. Yeah. You have that.
Well, that's what I've always read. People are always like, well, just if you want to build a habit, you just tack it on to your existing habits. Yeah. And I'm like, well, I got two of those. So it's brushing my teeth in the morning and brushing my teeth in the evening. Those are my existing habits. So I guess I could throw some push-ups on there, but so far I have not done jack shit. So anyway, I'm 49 years old and I'm figuring it out.
Well, happy New Year's, I guess, maybe a little early for y'all. Coming up in January, on January 18th, we have a free class. That's Saturday Brunch LR with Abi. I believe that's an hour long. He's just one of our great teachers. That's free. Yeah. So you can
very popular class. Check it out. And if you don't have time to show up live on Saturday, January 18th, you could also just watch the recording. Go to lsat.link/free, and you can sign up for Abi's class and make sure you at least get the recording of that. I think it's going to be a good one. What's on the agenda for today?
Yeah, so this first one is from random former listener. The subject is Worlds on Law School Exams.
I love these. I love it when we hear from longtime listeners to the show. Especially people who are now in law school or legal practice. It's awesome. So anyway, random former listener, RFL, says, the world's concept from games, rest in peace, is really useful on law school exams. Every issue spotter contains things that are certain and things that are uncertain. Just like in games, for any given issue, you can create 2, 3, or 4 worlds that cover the possibilities and just mechanically walk through what happens in each world if a given assumption is made. The only difference is that in law school, you know the rules and worlds ahead of time, and you're just waiting for the professor to tell you the facts that tell you which world or worlds you're limited to. Can I maybe try to give an example of that for people who don't know what we're talking about with
Sure,
worlds and,
of course.
and don't know what RFL is referring to?
Well, yeah, what the hell are worlds and what is this all about?
Okay, so in torts, we spent over 60% of our time, I would say, in my torts class as a 1L studying negligence. Did you do the same?
I don't remember. I've disassociated.
Ben's blocked it all out. Yeah, so it's all very hazy to me too, but different professors teach negligence in a different way. But let's say that your professor teaches negligence as 5 elements.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
But then every element has many sub elements underneath it.
Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So you're meant to know all the 5 elements, but you're also meant to know the arguments that happen regularly within each of those 5 elements.
Yeah.
So to determine, causation or something like that, how do we prove that this thing actually is related to you causing the issue? Did you cause it? Mm-hmm. And okay, so to figure out whether someone did or didn't cause it, there's A, B, and C. These 3 things that we maybe have to prove. Same thing for all the other elements of negligence.
Sure.
Standard of care, whatever the different elements are that the professor has chosen.
Yeah.
And you have an outline of the class which walks you through all the different elements and, cases that control those elements and just ways that they've argued through different facets of those elements. Then on the exam, negligence is going to be on that torts exam if you spent 60% of the class talking about negligence.
Yeah.
But it's not going to test you on your entire knowledge of negligence, because the issue spotter is going to have, for example, the judge might have instructed you not to address proximate cause or something.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's one of your worlds that you then don't even have to look at. You just have to build worlds based on the other elements.
Or maybe the facts are so obviously slanted in one direction that there is no debate on that element.
Or that, where it's just like, okay, that's going to be a slam dunk. That's dispositive. We don't need to talk about duty of care or whatever it is that we're working on here.
Mm-hmm.
Or it'll be like, there's clear that these are the 2 elements that we really need to focus on. And within those 2 elements, there's going to be worlds that we need to spend more time on because the facts are unclear. And that's when you run through the hypotheses, right? So it's not even in the fact pattern, but you're like, if plaintiff can show this, then we do this analysis. If they can't show that, then they have to do this other analysis or whatever it is. And it is a lot like the process that we used to teach for logic games, where it was like, okay, so here's the rules that control. And, in the games, you never knew the rules in advance. Mm-hmm. But it was the same type of shit where it was just like, okay, what are we trying to do here? What are we trying to sort out? And in logic games, they would just give you basically like a mini outline, right? Because they're giving you all the rules. And it's like, if X is third, then Z is fourth. Okay, all right, so I've got a world where X is third. And I got a world where X is not third. In the world where X is third, Z has to be fourth. In the world where X is not third. Don't you miss teaching the logic games?
I do miss those games, yeah.
and people were always like, oh, this has nothing to do with law school. Bullshit. It has nothing to do with law school, because that type of being able to think yourself through a rubric or think yourself through this like list of decision criteria is 100% exactly what you're doing in your first semester of law school exams.
Yeah. I mean, I would say it goes further. It applies a lot to life in the sense that when you're trying to solve a problem, you want to make sure you've mapped it all out.
Yeah.
We face this all the time with the website. We're trying to develop a tool and it's like, okay, have we covered every scenario? And I guarantee you there are scenarios we don't cover. And it's like, oh shit.
Absolutely.
The user who did this one little thing and got themselves into this corner, we don't have a solution for that.
Nor
and it
will
comes
you
from
ever.
not. Wait, what?
There just always will be undiscovered use cases, right? I mean, there's just like the website never stops throwing errors because people always are doing novel behaviors. Yeah. Now, we clean them up, right? So like the vast majority of people are never going to have any issue at all because it's like previously fixed little bugs. But
and when you think
especially
through it
as
logically,
it grows, right? More and more people, there's just more and more people doing random things. Sorry, go ahead.
Well, and when you force yourself to think through it in a worlds/games style, you're saying, okay, the user could do this, this, or this. And you're like, is that everything? And you're like, okay, that's everything. And so then it's just like mapping out worlds. And at least maybe one of those worlds is like a catch-all and it catches a bunch of small scenarios that are unlikely, but at least everything is covered so that something logically happens and the user can continue to work through the program. But anyways, yeah, it's a bummer that long story short, it's a bummer that they got removed.
Yeah, I hope we get an opportunity to teach logic games in some capacity in the future, though. It seems like it was a dumb decision for them to. I mean, they were forced to remove the games. It was a dumb legal decision that they got forced into this by a misguided lawsuit.
Yeah,
but it would be just great if we could figure out a way to bring games back somehow. That'd be awesome.
Yeah,
because you could use it for a lot. I mean, we could. We would be able to predict people's LSAT scores pretty well just from giving them games.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, among many other uses for those games. But
yeah.
Back to RFL, random former listener.
Yeah.
Says, I haven't listened in a really long time. I'm a 2L. So sorry if this is duplicative of anything you've already said. Also, thanks for the don't pay for law school advice. I used the score you caused me to get to go to a lower end top 14. I'm going to end up with the same job, same money, same clerkship, etc. That's it from random former listener.
Wow.
Nice, huh?
Yeah, that is nice. It's kind of a funny phrasing there. Use the score you caused me to get. I'm glad that we helped you.
It. They're direct.
I don't know if we entirely caused that, but maybe contributed.
We were a cause. We were a cause in fact.
Yeah.
But were we a proximate cause? I don't know. You'll learn about that in your 1L torts class when you study negligence. Yeah, our students do all the work, right? We just try to open up how easy the test actually is. If I tell you a million times, read it more carefully, it's easier than you think. Then eventually you go, oh, if I just read it carefully, it's really easy. And then your scores like skyrocket. And then if you take our admissions advice, you end up being a very savvy applicant and you go to the right school for the right price, which RFL decided, maybe I could have gotten into schools higher in the top 14. But settling for something in the lower end of the top 14 and getting a good scholarship was a better decision for me. Can we talk for a minute about T14 scholarships?
Yeah, of course.
I don't want to name drop too much, but a random school in the top 14 we were discussing on teacher Slack or team Slack. And these schools gather a lot of data on applicants, by the way.
Yeah.
Year after year after year, they have mountains of applicant data. So seeing the applicants share data amongst themselves, I don't feel like this is unethical at all to distribute some of the intelligence that we get when we start to see data from multiple applicants who are usually one against many, just like totally overmatched in the game. But as soon as they start sharing data, you learn things like one school outside the top 14 made 3 different Dean's Scholarship offers to our applicants. So, congratulations, getting like a personal greeting from the dean. With and then eventually Dean's Scholarship information follows later, not when you get your admission, but later you get your Dean's Scholarship information.
Yeah.
And I can't remember the money exactly, but like One of them was 45,000. One of them was 50 or 55,000. And one of them was a full ride.
Yep.
Is that what they were? Like
I think it was
something
40.
Like that.
I think it was 40,
40,
60, and full. Yeah, something like yeah.
Or 40, 55 and full ride or something like that.
Yeah.
All of them labeled Dean's Scholarship.
Mm-hmm.
And I just want to be clear about what's happening here, which is you take the nominal tuition, you subtract the Dean's Scholarship,
mm-hmm.
and what you see is the number that the dean has decided is a good first anchoring point for the price that you should actually pay for law school.
Yeah.
And you don't find it out until weeks or months after you've months and months after you've applied.
Mm-hmm.
And then further weeks or months after you've been admitted, do you finally get the price? And even then, they're never going to show you the price.
They're going to show you the discount.
They're going to show you the discount off of the price. And they're going to try to gas you up with Dean Scholarship and all this nonsense. Presidential seal of, because different schools have all these different bullshit names for all these fake scholarships. But all it is just a discount off of the price. I just want to be clear. And it's just so obvious. And I felt unclean as I was reading all this and I was thinking about the business that we're in. I mean, thank God that's not our business.
Yeah.
Thank God we get to basically charge everybody the same price for the things that we offer.
Yeah.
Here's the price.
Yep.
And we charge everybody the same price. We pretty much more or less like we give LSAT fee waiver discounts.
Yeah.
But other than that, we're not really giving discounts to people very often. So like, here's the product, here's the price. That's what most people think is fair.
Yeah.
That is not how law school works. And even at very, prestigious schools inside the top 14, but they're so desperate for the highest quality applicants, the most qualified applicants, high LSAT, high GPA, and they're out there giving multiple different Dean scholarships. It's all just a big negotiation.
Yeah. Well, what's weird is we just bought a car last week. And I know we keep talking about the analogy to car buying, but it would be so strange if the dealer was just showing me what the discount was.
But they do try to do that, right? I mean, like advertisements are just never stop talking about Labor Day weekend sale,
how much you're getting,
cash back, rebate, tax credits. They're just like always showing you the money that you get back. They don't want you anchoring on the price of the car. They certainly don't want you to learn about fees and things like that, which of course is another issue with law school pricing.
Yeah. Well, what we were actually, what was nice is we were talking with several dealerships. And so then it was like via text. And every time I text with them, I would just say, hey, what's the out the door price?
Yeah.
Because I just want to know what's it, because they all have different dealer fees and taxes.
I bet they weren't falling all over themselves to give you that number.
No, but asking enough, eventually they just started giving that. And so then that became what the focus was. Okay, so out the door, it's going to be this. Yep. And it would just be so strange to get an email from them saying, hey, we've decided to give you $1,000 off or something. It's like, okay, but what does that mean? Yeah.
Just stop fucking lying.
Yeah.
Really, when someone wants to talk about a discount, you should just say, stop fucking lying. What's the price? I'm serious. It's just such bullshit.
Yeah.
It really is shady. It's just, the least possible transparent way to talk about the actual cost of this. It's just incredible that it's an even shadier than car sales pricing model.
Yeah. I think they can probably get away with it because it has the air of sophistication.
Oh, unbelievable. And they talk about how it's like limited and all that,
Yeah.
I mean, we also heard from a separate bit of intelligence, we heard law school admissions folk from like one person at a top 20 school, one person at a 60th school, and one person at a 160th ranked school.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And they were all talking about this admission cycle.
Yeah.
And they were, when they were thought they were talking amongst themselves, they're talking about how, demand this year is so high. There's so many applicants that we're essentially going to get to charge more.
Mm-hmm.
The schools were talking about how they will be able to admit more applicants and they will not have to reconsider scholarship offers as generously.
Yeah.
And essentially what they're saying is, oh yeah, we're going to be able to charge these people whatever we want this cycle. Right now, so we learned that in mid-December of 2024.
Yeah.
It does seem clear that this cycle, especially trying to squeeze in late applications, doesn't make much sense.
No.
I mean, it never makes much sense because why wouldn't you want the bidding war to start earlier?
Yeah.
But this cycle, especially the law schools, it seems like are going to get pretty greedy with trying to admit a bunch of people and overcharge them.
Yeah.
Back to a random former listener. I love hearing from longtime listeners and past students. So any of you psychos out there who are still listening to Thinking LSAT after all these years, would you drop us a note, please? We'd love to hear what your deal is with law school. If you're out there practicing law now, we would just love to hear where you are now and what's going on. So Why don't you hit us up at thinkinglsat.com or talk to us on the socials. And we could do maybe a Where Are They Now feature on a future episode of the show. Because it's great to hear from people, down the road.
For sure. Please.
Next one up is from Anonymous. They are seeking advice on overcoming overthinking and brain fog during LSAT prep.
Okay. Anonymous writes, I scored a 148 on the official LSAT exam after being pressured, but now I'm holding off on re-registering until I'm consistently scoring in the 165 or higher range.
Okay, you can make that leap, but that's not like a short putt. That's 17 points.
Mm-hmm.
So you can get there, but just be willing to buckle up, for potentially a bit of a haul, especially if you were prepping, your way to that 148. You still have lots of prepping to do to get to that 165. That said, we do see people improve by 25, 30, 35, even 40 points sometimes.
Yeah. I mean, that 148 could have been close to their diagnostic if they were pressured into taking an exam way too early.
We don't know who pressured.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people out there doing the pressuring. It's not just parents and friends and family and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
It's also
law schools.
Well-meaning, but very, very misguided outreach programs that force people to take actual official LSATs.
Yeah. So Anonymous continues, for context, I work 2 part-time jobs and study 5 days a week for at least 1 hour per day, following the study schedule on your website.
Sounds great.
Okay.
1 hour a day is like the minimum price of admission, I think. 1 hour most days, high quality LSAT study. You should be making forward progress. Good.
However, I've been struggling with brain fog and overthinking, especially during logical reasoning. Some weeks I feel on top of my game and can answer harder questions accurately while drilling, but other weeks I find myself rereading an argument multiple times and still not fully grasping it. When I finally do understand the argument, I end up blanking out when it's time to answer the question, my usual ability to intuitively eliminate answer choices seeming to disappear. My questions are, okay, before we go into the questions, I do want to say there is something you said here. I find myself rereading an argument multiple times.
And still not fully grasping it.
Yeah.
Well, they're not talking about rereading sentences multiple times.
Exactly.
And they're not talking about rereading parts of sentences multiple times. It's really rare that Ben or I or anybody scoring in the 170s on the LSAT is going to reread an entire argument multiple times.
Yeah.
I'll reread the
top
first
to
sentence.
bottom.
I'll reread a sentence or more than one sentence, more than once if necessary, especially like a part of a sentence or at one really complicated sentence. I will reread that as many times as necessary. But eventually that argument is going to click. I'm going to go, all right, I see what you're doing here. This is your evidence. This is your conclusion. I'll tell you what's wrong with it. And I understand this argument. I'm just never getting to the end of the argument and my eyes are glazed over. I'm blanking out,
Yeah.
Reread the whole argument again.
Oh, that was confusing. Yeah.
Let me reread the whole argument again. Yep, still confused. Well, okay, because you didn't take time to unpack the first sentence or the first half of the first sentence.
Yeah. Sometimes it's just identifying the subject of the sentence because the subject is super, super long. They're talking about people from European countries who fail to follow a strict Mediterranean diet when they're vacationing. You're like, okay, those are the people we're talking about.
Yeah.
Let's get our mind wrapped around that first.
Other times they're going to say, it always rains on Tuesdays, which is apparent from the fact that it rained last Tuesday and it also rained. It's forecast for rain this Tuesday.
Yeah.
And that's all one sentence. But what I just said was a conclusion followed by two premises.
Yeah. Yeah.
But they could go on from there. They could have more sentences.
Yeah.
But I'm worried that Anonymous complaining of brain fog and overthinking and rereading arguments, I think you needed to reread the first sentence because there was an argument already in that first sentence. And they might build from that argument, or they might provide more evidence, or there's a lot of different things they could do next. But that one sentence might have had two premises and a conclusion in it. And did you actually take the time to figure that out?
Yeah. And object to part of that sentence and accept the other parts of that sentence.
I would say that that's like 90% probably what Anonymous is doing wrong.
Yeah. I agree.
Should we continue?
Yeah, the questions are: 1, what can I do to avoid overthinking during my study sessions?
I have not seen any evidence in this email of overthinking.
Yep.
I don't even know what you're talking about most of the time when people say they overthought it, because what people say is, I overthought it. I overthought the correct answer and eliminated it. Yeah, okay. But you also picked this other answer, which is wrong. And you didn't overthink that. Yeah. Because it's wrong. I'll tell you like exactly why it's wrong. And there was no overthinking involved in your decision to choose that answer. Right? Remember that one critical, it's really critical to your success on the LSAT is that you have to refuse to pick wrong answers. So the fact that you overthought the correct answer, found something in it that you didn't like, and didn't want to pick it, okay, maybe that's this much overthinking. But then you didn't apply that same scrutiny to the wrong answer that you chose. So I just don't think overthinking is your problem.
Yeah, I agree. And I actually think when you're rereading an entire argument, that's a big sign of overworking, but underthinking.
Yes.
You're glossing over the hard stuff.
I think you literally can't miss a question on the LSAT because of overthinking.
Yeah.
You could eliminate all 5 answers from overthinking.
Yeah.
But settling on a wrong answer is ultimately underthinking, right? Or you're just deciding, hey, I'm not getting any closer to the correct answer here. I feel like it has to be one of these two. I'm just going to pick one. And you might have to do that once per section. But it's just otherwise, people think that their whole problem is overthinking. Nah, it can't be. It's just not possible.
The next question is, how can I minimize brain fog And I actually think brain fog comes from the same problem of rereading and underthinking what you're reading, because it becomes foggy and yet you move on. You continue instead of clearing up that fog right as it starts to roll in. You have to say, wait, hold up.
Yeah.
Let me blow this fog out of here, get crystal clear, and then continue.
Or a different analogy, just it's not that it's too foggy. It's that you're driving too fast.
Mm-hmm.
Like, yeah, okay, it's foggy, but if you slow down to an appropriate speed, you could still safely operate.
Yeah.
And I think what you're doing is you've just got the pedal to the metal here, reading
and then you go around again
and rereading. Exactly. Yeah, you miss your destination. And it's like, well, no, it was right there. You just didn't. You weren't going slow enough to actually see the signs. I think I think the first thing that we said, which was just, you can't be rereading the entire argument. You got to reread sentences or parts of sentences. That's what's going to cut through this fog.
Yeah. Last question. Should I still do time sections on days when I'm feeling like this, or should I push my study schedule back a day?
Huh?
You're suggesting
Stop making such a big deal about time sections. Jesus Christ. Like, just get over it. The point of doing time sections is not to test your value.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't mean anything about you. The purpose of it is not to perform on a section of the test. The purpose is not to accumulate good sections or to score high on the LSAT. That's not the point. The point is to teach you to drive slowly. You need to ignore the clock even when the clock is ticking. So, yes, you should continue to do time sections on days. I mean, you're doing a mix of drilling and time sections because that's what we recommend in our default 1 hour a day study schedule. I don't want you skipping time sections because you think you're feeling foggy. All that indicates to me is that you're not approaching the time sections with the correct mindset. You agree?
Yeah. All right. So this next one is a quick peek at the Ask You, and then we have a screenshot of the Ask You. Okay. Yeah. What do you want to say
I put
about
it there this morning. I just wanted to take a peek. I wanted to congratulate our awesome team. I took this screenshot at, I'm on Pacific time right now. I took this screenshot at about 8:50 this morning.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And there were a grand total of 9 questions sitting in the ask queue.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
All Demon subscribers have the ability to access our team of tutors who work literally around the clock to answer your ask button questions. We have people in half dozen different time zones who work on this stuff.
Yeah, possibly more. Yeah.
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 And everybody just has different schedules anyway.
Yep.
So the last time you can ask questions on any question inside the Demon. You can hit the ask button.
Mm-hmm.
And I put this in here related to the previous email, because if you're feeling brain fog, if you're feeling like you're overthinking things, I think actually you're just underthinking them, and you probably need to review your mistakes more carefully to feel more of those clicks.
Mm-hmm.
So in your review, if you're not getting those clicks, if it's not making sense, I want you to use the ask button, and you're likely to get very fast responses to your ask button queries. This inbox was at 0 emails as of 3:29 a.m. Eastern.
Yeah.
So midnight Western.
Yeah.
This queue was at 0. And this morning when I checked it, there were 9 emails waiting for responses, but we had at least one team member in the queue actively working to respond to your questions. So I'm proud of our Ask Button team. I wanted to give them a little bit of a shout out here. And I wanted to remind students that we do have an entire team of tutors available for you if you want to ask questions.
Cool. Yeah.
Any more about that?
No.
Cool. What's this next one?
Subject is, let's see, who is this from? Wow. Okay. This is from KR Burns.
KR Burns.
Okay, KR. The subject is clarification on pearls versus turds from episode 485. All right. I don't remember what we did for that pearls versus turds, but let's get some
KR,
clarity.
I think is going to remind us. By the way, thank you for doing this, KR. If we ever say anything where we don't know what we're talking about, which I'm sure happens a lot, especially from my end, please just correct us.
From me,
we're willing to learn things. No, I know it crosses my mind all the time, like stupid shit that I've said on the show that later I have learned is wrong.
Yeah.
We don't claim to know everything. We're just trying to talk about stuff and figure out, the truth. So if we ever say anything wrong, please correct us. And I think you'll find that we will correct ourselves when we fuck it up. Anyway, KR says, "Greetings, Ben and Nathan. I want to address the pearls versus turds section in episode 485. The Navigating Law School Admissions podcast was quoted as saying that retaking the LSAT, quote, can make you look like a perfectionist in the eyes of admission. But after listening to their Ask Me Anything episode, I can confirm that this advice was misrepresented. Here's a summary of what they actually said. There was a question posed to them, quote, when is it worthwhile to retake the LSAT? Their response was basically, if your official score is below the average of your last 5 weeks of practice test scores, a retake is advised. If you've hit your average, consider whether you have the potential to improve further. Chasing a high score that occurred only once or twice during practice is not realistic. Given the LSAT's expense and rigor, stopping is reasonable if you're at your limit of resources and energy-wise, provided your score aligns with your practice test range."
Whoa, let's stop right there. So this is a more nuanced response than maybe...
It's a digressing response with all kinds of like qualifications and limitations on it. Yeah.
So I would immediately say I disagree that chasing a high score that occurred only once or twice during practice is not realistic. The potential upside is so huge that if you have seen that score in your practice tests and you haven't got it yet, I could
think of some caveats. If your average is 165 over your last 20 tests and there was a single test where you got a 178 and you think it might be because you saw that test before.
Sure. Like, keep going for that.
Then I could see how
but it's still not totally unreasonable. I mean, like, you've done it. And how often is it going to be that extreme, right? And
so the next question.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Well, yeah, anyways. The potential upside to getting a higher score is so significant that I think exhausting 5 attempts is reasonable. And then when they start talking about the LSAT expense, it's like, it is expensive. But
and that's my business, not yours. What's it fucking have to do with you?
Well, yeah, and law school is exponentially more expensive.
Why condescend to me? Look, I mean, I guess this kind of like gives the lie to this whole thing. Law schools and pre-law advisors all the time are telling people don't retake the LSAT. Why? Well, their motivation is to get you to apply right now. That car dealer doesn't want you to go do more research.
Mm-hmm.
That car dealer does not want you to go, arrange your own cash financing. Because they want to sell you financing. They don't want you to be like a super savvy consumer because, there's a lot of other dealerships that you might decide to go shop from if you were a super savvy consumer. They want you to shop now. So thinking about their incentives, when they then start saying, oh, well, it's very expensive. Oh, and they also mention rigor.
Yeah.
Fuck off. Rigor? What are you talking about?
Yeah.
It's hard it's so taxing for a student to sit for 2.5 hours to do another official LSAT attempt.
You know what takes rigor is paying off your student loans for decades.
Yeah. Or like legal practice.
Yeah.
Or like going to law school.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think law school is actually rigorous at all compared to legal practice, but some people find law school extremely rigorous.
Mm-hmm.
It's far more rigorous in any case than sitting for 2.5 hours to take another test.
Yeah.
So when they say, oh, it's expensive and rigorous, so, we understand when people stop. Yeah, okay. That's not your business. It's my business to decide whether I want to retake.
Yeah.
Anyway, they go on and they say, here's another question. So this is thank you, KR, for reporting from the transcript of the AMA. So, or maybe not transcript, but listening and paraphrasing at least this Ask Me Anything. The question is there ever an LSAT so high that it will be viewed negatively if you retake? That's a valid question. This goes to the perfectionism thing that we were talking about.
Sure.
On episode 485. So the hosts apparently acknowledged LSAC's score band of error, which is plus or minus 4 points. For scores in the 172 to 173 range, retaking would need compelling circumstances, according to them.
Compelling. Wow.
You know what's compelling?
A higher LSAT score?
Yeah, because it's going to blow the doors open to so many law schools and also give you tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars of scholarship funding. That's compelling circumstances. Anyway, they go on and say, schools offering merit-based scholarships might favor a retake, while need-based schools like Yale and Harvard may not prioritize it. Quote, the quote, perfectionist streak was only mentioned in the context of retaking a very high score, like a 174 to a 176, to aim for a 180. So they did say it. They did mention it, but I don't know. These are presumably smart people. Like, what do score bands have to do with anything? Like, are they really saying, well, the margin of error on the test is plus or minus 4 points. So if you got a 174, then that means that your score band is between 170 and 178. And you're like, yeah, but I have 178s on my practice test record. If I take it again and get a 178, now my score band will be 174 to 180, I guess. What's the score band have to do with anything? Like, a higher score raises your score band.
Well, we don't even need to ask them the question. We can just look at the data on lsd.law and see that, when you have a median that's 174, what happens to people who have a 173?
KR says, TLDR of my whole spiel here is that the hosts do not discourage retakes and do not penalize applicants for them. However, they stress being realistic about the score band and setting practical expectations. Overall, the Navigating Law School Admissions podcast strongly supports retakes and practice tests, aligning closely with advice from the Thinking LSAT podcast. I hope this clarifies the original advice and encourages you to revisit the Pearls versus Turds scoreboard. The episode includes more nuanced discussions on retake, score cancellations, and related topics, but never criticizes retaking. In fact, it encourages it. So we must have given a turd. And KR is concerned about the integrity of the Pearls versus Turds scoreboard.
Yeah, thank you, KR.
So we should probably go back and fix that.
Wait, how are we going to fix it, though? I wouldn't give this a pearl.
I wouldn't give it a pearl, but I might take the turd off and put it as a tie.
Yeah, possibly. Here's my concern. And my concern is that most people are obsessed and concerned about multiple retakes. They're concerned that it's going to look bad.
Yeah.
And the message needs to be loud and clear.
Yeah.
Take the test as many times as you need to get the best score you can get. I don't care what your score is.
Damn 5 attempts is the default presumption in Ben Olson's world.
Yeah. If you have a 177, 178, 179, 180, congratulations. You can be done. But the vast, vast, vast majority of people do not have those scores, and they need to know that having only one score on record is not the goal.
Right. Like you get nothing for that.
You no, but they think
There's
that you
no
do.
value.
They're
The
like,
one and done has no value.
But what if someone has a 172 and someone else has a 172 and a 166? Isn't that worse?
Yeah, right.
And it's like stop worrying about
if it's 1/10 of 1% worse.
Yeah.
It's also true that if that person retook it again and got a 173,
yeah,
that would now be like 20% better.
Yeah.
At that level.
They just knocked him out.
Literally a 20% better applicant from one LSAT point.
Well, you say 20%.
When you're at that level.
You say
20%. I just made up a number.
Yeah, but it could
maybe
be 100%. It could be 100% better because if you've now entered their median, you're getting accepted, whereas others are getting rejected.
Yep. No, it could be $50,000 in scholarship money. It could be admission versus waitlisting. It could mean everything. So I'm glad to hear that KR thinks that the hosts of the Navigating Law School Admissions podcast are in favor of retakes and encourage it.
Yeah.
Says strongly support retakes. So that's great. So maybe we could just take the turd away.
Sure. And just say.
I mean, but be careful then, right? Like these people, they kind of live in like ivory tower sort of a world, right? So their words are treated like the notes from inside the Federal Reserve Committee on whether they're going to raise interest rates. Like holy people trying to read the tea leaves, the signals coming from on high.
Yeah.
And, the smoke coming out of the Vatican chimney. It's like, that's what this is.
Yeah.
That's what these people hang on their every word. So the second they start saying like, oh yeah, you would need compelling circumstances. Ooh.
And people are like, oh, I don't have compelling circumstances.
Everyone has compelling circumstances. So stop saying that.
Mm-hmm.
Like I've just seen too many people, even people who teach for us, who took it a fourth or fifth time and scored 7 points higher on that test than they had on any previous test. Are you seriously telling me that was not, they didn't have compelling enough circumstances because they had already had a 172 on record and then they ended up getting a 180 on a retake?
Yeah.
That's not worth anything. That's worth a lot. That's compelling.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, KR, for that clarification.
Yeah. No, thank you.
Next one's from Landon. Subject is retaking an amazing score.
Okay. Let's see what this has to say.
It's a question that people ask all the time,
Yep. Landon says, I'd like to preface this with acknowledging this is an amazing problem to have, but I'd still love your advice on it. In June, I scored a 172 on my first official test, but went into it with practice tests averaging 176, topping out at 178. Since then, I've gotten to the point where I can fairly consistently score 179s and 180s.
Whoa. What? It's December. Where are all of the intervening official tests? You should be done by now, Landon. What are you doing?
I don't know. Let's.
I mean, you agree though, right? Like, Landon, dude.
You should have been
had
signed
practice
up for
tests between 176 and 178. Okay? You should be done by now because when you took that June test, you should have also taken, how many tests were there this year? I don't even remember what the calendar was exactly. Was it like June, July, August, September?
I feel like October, November. Yeah, I feel
November.
Yeah.
I mean, there were 4 at least tests since then.
Mm-hmm.
And Landon now is talking about I'm registered for the February test
as opposed to January. Yeah.
What are you doing, dude? You have practice tests to justify taking all 5 of your official attempts in a row, and you should be. Listen to the rest of this.
Okay. Landon says, I'm registered for the February test, but a part of me worries I'll have an off day and score a 175 or 176, which according to the scholarship calculator, it's an estimator, would not be sufficient paired with my 3.48 GPA for my goal schools of Georgetown, the UCs, or possibly NYU. My goal is to get a federal clerkship and someday become a judge. I've heard that retaking scores like 175 or 176 is seen in a negative light, but I know I can break 179 within a test or two. All that to ask, would it be stupid to cancel a score in the 174 to 176 range in this situation?
Oh my God, yes. That would be so fucking stupid, Landon.
Yeah. Okay, so this is my point exactly. This is somebody who is obsessed with the number of tests on the record.
With the downside and the number of tests on record that is willing to cancel a score that is somewhere between 2 to 4 points higher than his highest score on record. Landon's talking about, well, it's my second attempt. I've got a 172 on record.
I know I can get a 178.
I'm looking at this 175 that I just got with Score Preview. I think I'm going to cancel it. Oh my God. What?
No. You're climbing a mountain and you've just anchored in several yards up. And you're like, no, take it down. Take it down.
And we don't even need to be climbing a mountain. We could be talking about Harvard Law School.
Yeah.
And we could say, you just went from below their 25th or at their 25th percentile to at their median or above their median.
Yep.
And you're really seriously thinking, wait, okay, now you can go back to your analogy. What are we going to do to that anchor?
Yeah, we're going to yank it out and come back down and be like, let's climb it all again. Because we're going to do this one and done.
You're not even coming back down. You're just going to yank out the protection
and fall.
And keep climbing. No, keep climbing.
Oh, yeah. Yes.
That's what you're doing.
Yeah.
This is, Landon's like, okay, good. I got myself anchored in at a 174 to 176.
Yep.
And I could just keep climbing from there with the protection.
Mm-hmm.
But no, I'm going to take that one out.
I don't want anyone to see.
I want to fall
nervous.
farther if I fall.
Yeah.
Holy shit. Okay, yeah, that does make me want to revisit our decision to maybe revisit the scoreboard for pearls versus turds, because I think it remains a turd then, right?
Yeah.
Like people like Landon hear what they say, and even if they usually strongly encourage retakes or whatever, they're making too many noises about the downsides of retaking. You shouldn't make any noises about the downsides of retaking.
Yeah.
And that's why it's a turd.
That's a turd.
Thank you, though, KR. we have heard your appeal, and we seriously considered its merits. But on further, there was a brief from Landon when Landon came in, and with that in consideration, we have to remain with your appeal has been denied.
Yeah, I mean, we do want the most accurate information. We don't want to shoot down a inadequate argument, but even their best argument still it creates problems. So
the fact that they're even mentioning the downsides of retaking, there are no downsides to retaking. That needs to be the clear message.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh my God, Landon is about to make a terrible decision. I mean, he's already making terrible decisions. Like, Landon, dude, you're not doing it our way. You should be taking the test multiple times in a row so that you can take the pressure off of any one test. Plan on exhausting all 5 of your attempts. Only your highest score is going to count. The safest way to get yourself something between 176 and 178 is to just commit to taking the next one and the next one and the next one and let the chips fall where they may. You do not need to be thinking about canceling scores.
Yeah. Here's Landon's last question. How do you think a law school would see a 176 to 179 jump? In other words, a jump from 172 all the way up to 176 or 179. Again, this
fucking
just
love it.
Yeah. This just reveals like the obsession with details that have no consequence. But
there's
unfortunately,
only upside, no downside, and they literally might not even see the jump.
Yeah, in their system.
They're going to put you into a spreadsheet that includes your UGPA, which apparently for you is only a 3.48. So yeah, if you're trying to get into Georgetown or the good UCs or NYU, you're going to need a big LSAT to counterweight that GPA. And higher the better. And now, I mean, that 176 is already above the medians at these schools. But it's certainly not going to be perceived negatively.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's also, that especially, God, you're 170. Well, notice that he's asking a question about a 176 that he hasn't even achieved. Because the truth, like, what would they say about a jump from 172 to 179? Again, they might not even see it. They probably don't even see it. Probably all they see is the 179. What's their reaction to a 179?
Oh, shit. Great.
It's not bad.
No.
Yeah. It's like, wow, that could be the highest LSAT we received this year.
Yeah.
Potentially. Maybe not. Maybe these schools get 180s every year. I know the top schools get 180s every year, but maybe some of these schools don't get 180s.
Yeah.
They probably do because people apply so broadly.
They just apply broadly, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But either way, they get the 179. They're not going to be like, hey, yeah, can you reach out to him and figure out exactly what happened here? I want to understand why he went from a 172 to a 179. Until we can get a clear answer on that, we are not concerned about this. No, it's a 179. That's what they will report.
And if they ever ask you, or if an application has a mandatory question about disclosing big improvements, my practice test indicated I could do better, so I took it again.
Mm-hmm.
Next one.
Yeah. This is from John. The subject is, what's the deal with GW law?
Oh, here we go. George Washington Law School in D.C.
This is where I went to law school.
This is Ben's alma mater.
Yeah.
What's the deal, Ben, with George Washington Law? What's your perception of GW as an alum?
Well, it's dropped in the rankings since I went there, I'm pretty sure. And although in theory I don't care about rankings, it still is.
You're aware of it.
Yeah, I'm aware of it. It's like, what happened?
Yeah. Big school, right?
Yeah, very big school in the middle of DC.
Okay.
I don't know. Yeah, I mean, just like any other law school, I think.
Okay. Like regional law school located in a region that employs a shit ton of lawyers.
Yeah. I mean, within the DC area, I think it has, it has these local skirmishes. Yes, it's more respected than some of the other law schools here, and then less respected than Georgetown.
Yeah, I would guess that you're just still not like blowing open the doors to big law in New York City.
Yeah.
It's possible that it has all the great connections in DC, although there's an awful lot of Georgetown grads around.
And UVA.
Who are like, Oh, and UVA too. Yeah.
Yeah.
And Harvard and Stanford and Yale.
Yep.
For that matter, that are in DC now.
Mm-hmm.
And they look at George Washington and they're like, really? Second best law school in town?
Mm-hmm.
Third best law school in the region? 20th best law school on the East Coast? I don't know. I don't even know what the ranking is. So John says, GW Law has been all over the map with U.S. News and World Report rankings. I'm not sure I understand what's going on, as there really isn't any rhyme or reason to the numbers. It seems that the weightings shifted to actual job outcomes, which GW has good numbers for, as well as bar passage outcomes, which also seem reasonably good at George Washington compared to other schools. George Washington Law seems to have a lock on government contracts, and even big law seems reasonable for at least 30 to 40% of the class. What am I missing? Where's the hate coming from? So what's the deal with George Washington University School of Law? First of all, how's 30 to 40% sound for you for big law placement?
There are other schools that do twice that.
Weren't we just looking at Fordham?
Is it like 60?
Had pretty significantly higher. And Fordham is the third best school in New York.
Yeah. Well, I think what it reveals is that when you get to schools below, right, say the 50th or whatever, their big law placement's probably 1%, 0. I don't know.
Yeah,
so maybe this looks good compared to that. It looks good compared to most law schools because most law schools aren't going to get you big law.
Yeah. I mean, but is this school a shoe-in to get you big law?
No.
Like,
I mean, look,
what
you
if
have a
you
30 to
barely
40%
squeak
chance.
into George Washington?
No. Yeah. You're more likely
if you're
to
at
be
George
the bottom
Washington
class.
on a full ride, let's say you got into Georgetown, but they didn't offer you enough of a discount. You get into GW offers you a full discount.
Mm-hmm.
you go to GW, what are your chances of scoring a big law job?
No, much higher, right? Because you're more likely to be in the top of your class. But
pretty damn good. You got the scholarship because of your LSAT or your GPA or some combination of those things.
Mm-hmm.
You have a better academic record and or a better testing record than the other people that you're going to be competing on in an academic environment of tests.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And the job offers, the job interviews are highly related to class rank. Yeah. Many people have their internships and jobs lined up as like a 2L. Yeah. So it's going to be a 1-year academic competition. And if you already, if you beat the competition in LSAT and in GPA, then you're a good bet to also finish in the top 40% of the class. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Flip side, if you're one of the few people paying full price, you have the worst LSAT, the worst GPA coming in. Now you're not a very good bet to score one of those top 40% big law jobs. Anyway, time to look at the 509?
Yeah, let's do it. I was just looking at the ranking right now. I was surprised that, wow, it's 41 this year. When I went, it was in the low 20s. So.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
My alma mater, San Francisco, University of California, San Francisco Law, University of California. I don't remember.
Good luck with that title. Yeah.
Hastings, old Hastings. They were ranked, like 38th or something like that, I think, when I went. And now they have been all the way down into like the 60s or something. So we have that in common. You're the school, the rankings change very infrequently in like the top.
Yeah.
Top 6, top 10, top 14 even. Very few changes, maybe right on the margin of 14. There's a couple changes here and there. But changes outside the top 14 are wild.
Mm-hmm.
What was it that we talked about last week?
Oh,
Texas A&M.
A&M, yeah. What did they go from the hundreds to
the hundreds into like the 20s or something?
Or even,
or the teens?
High teens.
The high teens?
Yeah.
And then all those other schools like George Washington and like Hastings drop one spot because Texas A&M goes out there and gives a whole bunch of scholarships for a few years, skyrockets up the rankings. Everybody else drops a step. Anyway, George Washington School of Law. I'm looking at the 509 American Bar Association required document. I jumped straight down to, median LSAT 168, median GPA 3.87. Skipping down past all the nonsense about faculty resources and random shit. Tuition and fees. Wow. $72,000, $500 resident and non-resident the same. And that's no fees though, Ben. You like that? That's transparent pricing in Ben's world.
I'd rather have fees with a much lower tuition, but yeah, okay.
Yeah. Outrageous tuition. They do not offer conditional scholarships, but boy, do they give grants. 80% of the class receives some kind of grants. But most of those are scammerships. You got 59% of the class getting less than half tuition. So 20% get no grant at all. And then another basically 60% of the class are going to still pay at least half of the $72,500.
And they might be getting scholarships as low as $5,000, like presidential preferred scholarship to try to get you to feel excited. Yeah.
Well, their 25th percentile grant amount is $20,000 for full time. So, like the bottom quarter of the 80% who get grants, like 20% of the class, actually 40% of the class is getting, 40% of the class is getting something that averages, or at least something with a median of $20,000. And the 50th percentile grant is $25,000. The 75th percentile grant is $35,000. So they do seem to be giving that feels like a pretty compressed range to me, where they're giving, they're giving at least the middle of the scholarship recipients. And you have to be able to do you have to be a fucking wizard to figure out what the actual price is, right? Because now, what am I doing now, Ben? I'm about to tell you, okay, so if you look at the 25th percentile and the 75th percentile, then that gives you a bracket on the middle 50% of the scholarship recipients, which is 80% of the class.
Yeah.
So 40% of the class is in the middle 50% of the scholarship grants.
Yep. So
we can tell that for sure, we know that 40% of the class is paying somewhere between 72.5 minus 20 to 35. So the middle 50% of the class, is that now the middle 50% of the class? I lost the plot entirely.
No, because it would be the top, right? It'd be the top 80% that's getting the discount.
Oh, right. The top 80% of the class. Yeah, I mean, we can just ignore the bottom 20% of the class. Just say okay, bottom 20% of the class, you shouldn't be there. Yep. You're making a huge mistake.
Yeah, you're paying full price.
They're giving everybody else a discount, but not you. That means you should not be there.
Yep.
It's not a good fit for you. You're barely squeaking in. Now, you're the child of rich family or whatever. I don't care about you. Whatever, that's fine. It's fine. I'm just not worried about it because mom, dad, grandparents are paying the tuition, whatever, fine. I don't care.
Yeah. But there is nuance there too, right? Because there's families that are squeaking by to pay that. And it's like, oops.
Just individuals who are going to borrow the money to pay that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anybody who's going to actually pay full price at this school, what are you doing? They're charging 80% of the class less than they're charging you. Why do you want to do that to yourself? Okay. So not getting no grants at a school. What's that?
Oh, ignoring the bottom 20%. Yeah.
Well, because paying full price at a school that charges $72,000 when they only charge 20% of the class, $72,000, that's just insane. I mean, there's unless you're absolutely made of money and you're just going to pay this in cash without blinking an eye, or somebody else is paying in cash without blinking an eye. But if you're going to borrow this money, oh my God, your chances of getting a big law job are slim.
Very low. Yeah.
You're in the 1/5 of the class that didn't get a scholarship. And
you want to be in the top 2/5.
The top 2/5 are going to have a chance, are going to end up in big law.
Yeah.
So you're going to have to be 1/5. You're in the bottom. What do they call that?
Quintile?
You're in the bottom quintile in terms of previous academic performance as measured by LSAT and GPA.
Yep.
And now you're going to have to finish in the top 2 quintiles of top 40% of the class in order to get one of these big law jobs at this school. It's just a horribly bad bargain for these people. And so I want to yell at those people, please don't borrow money to do that to yourself. I also want to yell again at the American Bar Association and the U.S. Department of Education to ask them whether this is a fair system where the least qualified people pay full price. Everybody else pays wildly less. The most qualified people, by the way, I haven't even gotten to that point yet, but there are 21% of the class who are getting a half to full tuition or a full tuition scholarship. So there are people who are paying, they're getting a grant of $35,000 or more all the way up to and including full ride scholarship.
You said grant, but to be clear, we're saying discount because there's not any money that's coming from anywhere.
It's just such a fiction. I know.
Yeah.
Right. Okay, so American Bar Association, change the standard here. Instead of having a grants and scholarships table, it should be a discounts table.
Yep.
And even better than that would be, instead of a 1L tuition and fees table, give me a single table that shows the actual price paid and maybe break it out into deciles or something. Yeah. Just what's your 10th decile price? What's your 20th decile
What percentage
price?
of students are paying that? Yeah.
Yeah. And just get rid Well, I mean, I could see a single chart with only 10 lines.
Mm-hmm.
And it just has 10, 10th decile, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90,
Yeah.
or whatever. And then just what's the price paid in that decile?
Mm-hmm.
You could get rid of 2 tables with a total of 20 lines and instead just have 1 table with 10 lines. And you wouldn't have to do, it wouldn't take me and Ben to talk about it for 20 minutes just to try to figure out the price that people are actually paying to go to this school.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Am I going to rant about that every time we do What's the Deal With?
Yes.
Probably. I probably am, because it pisses me off. It's just not right. I mean, they should fix that. Okay.
Well, so let's figure this out for the 80% of the class that is getting money.
Yeah.
50%. So is that 50%? Is that 50% of the 80%, or is it 50% of the 100%?
Oh, you mean on the grant amount?
Yeah, yeah.
I have always assumed that that's of the people getting grants.
I've assumed that as well.
But if it's for the class as a whole, well, it should make that clear. I mean, that's another thing that they've added a couple points of clarification, haven't they? They've added some explanatory text to this document.
A long ass paragraph explaining what
that
standard 503
is. That schools don't have to always have an LSAT, but it's like, since so many schools are just using the LSAT anyway. Exactly. So that's another just big waste of time. It's like, oh, let's distract everybody. Is
LSAT required? Oh no, not at this school. And it's a variance, and here's how the variance works.
You know how how like you're a bomber or whatever trying to make it to your target, and like the fighters are coming after you.
Yeah. And
you like deploy the flak.
Yeah. Random. Yeah.
You
distractions.
Just release a bunch of shrapnel out of your cargo bay or whatever.
Yeah.
To try to obfuscate.
That's
what all this shit is. Honestly, it's just way too much. How about this next table, by the way, while we're ranting?
Yeah.
This next table, the JD enrollment table that breaks out, it's breaking out race and ethnicity, which I don't have a problem with that. Why the fuck does it have JD1, JD2, JD3, JD4 so that you then end up with a totally bloated table of information?
Yeah. Well, so is that for each year? And that's like a part-time program would have 4 years.
So JD1 is first year. And then what is TM? Oh, that's total men and women.
Total men and women. AGI? What's that? The point is they're just like, let's add as much detail. Let's go in the opposite direction, give as much detail as possible so that there is no information you actually glean from this. What's weird here.
Deploy flak, deploy smoke screen and oil slick.
Yeah.
And all the other things that you might deploy in order for pursuers to, it's like throwing a bunch of tacks, like Home Alone style. Throwing a bunch of marbles on the floor is what this essentially is.
Mm-hmm.
But it allows you to answer pressing questions like, how many of the people who are currently JD3s, how many women of 2 or more races?
Yeah, let's figure that out.
It's like, that's such a specific question that I don't. How does that, like? Why can't you just report that one number for the whole school?
Yeah,
I guess I'm particularly mad about JD 1, 2, 3, and 4.
Well, still, but to your point, like, what are you going to look at this and be like, okay, so they've got 3 women of 2 or more races. Okay, this is a school for me. Like, what? Huh?
Yeah, and what's it doing? It's just like, so now you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 page PDF. Where would you put the pricing information, if you were trying to hide it in a 6-page document, where
Yeah,
would you put the pricing
put it right
information?
in the middle.
Yeah, you'd bury it right in the middle of the document. You know, they for bonus points, they could have figured out how to spread the tuition and fees table to a different page from the grants and scholarships table. That would have been even better. And we did see that recently. I think that the A&M 509 had that.
Yeah.
But that's probably just luck of the draw. If these people were true professionals at the obfuscation, they would print their PDFs with that information also separated onto 2 separate pages to make it even harder to figure out what the actual price is that people are paying. Oh my God. Okay. Want to talk more about what's going on at actual GW?
Sure.
You want to read this?
Yeah. So the law school is large. That is true. With a class of 500 or more students, like many law schools, they divide their classes into sections, but GW is special because they've invented a fancy name for this practice, Inns of Court.
What
I
now?
don't remember that. Inns of Court? Is there section names?
Inns of Court. we had 5 sections at Hastings.
Yeah.
We had section 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. But here they're doing like a Hogwarts style, where they're having Inns of Court.
Look
From
at
their
this.
website.
Yeah.
Founded in 2011, the JD Inns of Court for 1Ls features 7 cohorts named after former Supreme Court justices. Students take all of their 1L classes with their inn and attend almost weekly Inns of Court program sessions led by their advisors and designed to supplement doctrinal courses with critical skills development, career exploration, and professional identity formation. This program so impressed the ABA's Standing Committee on Professionalism that the committee awarded GW its E. Smythe Gambrell Professionalism Award in 2018. Fun fact.
Wow. Yeah. Well, someone was watching Harry Potter. You're right. And they're like,
That's what I'm saying.
They're
This
like,
came
we
out
can do
in
this.
2011.
Oh, yeah. That's
They
when
were
it was
like,
big.
wow, you guys, it'll be so cool. We could have like a sorting
Hat?
gavel.
Gavel. Yeah. A sorting gavel.
A sorting robe. Wait, I was looking for what's the name of the fancy collar that Ruth Bader Ginsburg always wore?
Oh, I don't know.
Oh, the jabot. Because they have a
Jabot.
podcast on it, on the Above the Law.
Oh, okay.
Those folks.
Yeah.
They have a podcast called The Jabot, which I've never listened to. But that is what that thing is called.
Okay.
We got the sorting jabot, and it'll put you into your Inn of Court. Isn't that cool? Isn't that cute?
Inn of Court.
Oh, it'll be so great.
Oh man.
Inn of Court. Okay, now I have to look at the website to see the Inn of Court. I want to see what their Inns of Court. Trailblazing professional development program. The Inns of Court at GW Law distinguish these degree programs from every other law school in the nation.
Oh, yeah.
And demonstrates our commitment to training law students holistically and preparing them for successful, meaningful careers in the legal profession.
Okay.
You know, you can look at their employment PDF, the ABA employment summary document. And what we see there is out of 524 graduates reporting, 168 of them went into firms of 500 or more lawyers.
Yeah.
And then another 23 of them went into federal clerkships.
Mm-hmm.
So you're looking at about 190 out of 524 who went into big law or big time clerkship life. And yeah, that's a, boy, that's not that. I don't think that's 40%, is it? Well, maybe it is.
Well,
It's
big law
close.
might include the
524
251
divided
to
by
500.
190. Yeah, but that's only another 25 folks, right?
Yeah, that's close to
190 into
35.
524 is 36%. Yeah, I guess
Yeah.
if you count firms 250 and higher, then maybe you get to that 40% number. So, they can say everything they want to say about, go on about the ins of court, but it's like, yeah, okay, you're a regional law school that puts about 40% of people into high paying legal jobs.
Mm-hmm.
About 60% of your graduates then are going to go into quite mundane paying, at least, jobs.
Yeah.
Right? Where you're not expecting six figures on graduation. But you did pay $72,500 a year potentially. So, think about the bottom 20% of the class who are probably not going to get a top 40% outcome. So those are the people who are going to pay the $72,500
mm-hmm.
times 3, plus living expenses, plus books. They're going to graduate with $300,000 of debt, and they're going to be making less than $100,000 a year.
Eric notes that some people online have complained about the high cost of GW's seat deposit. Maybe GW has heard those complaints. Their seat deposit for 2025 is now $2,250, which you can make in 3 payments instead of their historic $3,000. Wow.
So they reduced it to $750 times 3 instead of 3,000.
Yeah.
In one go. And it's less of a sticker shock. It's still like almost the same amount of money. I mean, it's a 25% discount, right? They lowered the seat deposit by 25%.
Jeez, it's so crazy because it's almost like the $3,000 sticker shock was a blessing in disguise. Like if you can't muster that, then
oh my God,
why do you think you're going to muster $72K a year? Yeah, 300.
No, literally 100 times that is what you're going to expect to owe.
Yeah.
If you're borrowing full freight here. And so people are like, oh boy, that 3,000. Oh, well, don't worry about it because you can avoid paying the seat deposit by submitting a binding commitment form by April 15th.
Yet another way. So maybe that's interesting. So they raise the seat deposit really high, but then they give you this short-term out. You can pay nothing, but you have to commit to us.
You have to bind yourself legally to us. So in exchange, valuable consideration, Ben.
Yeah.
We're going to waive this seat deposit requirement in exchange for your binding yourself to us. So that then you now can't take any scholarship offer or offer of admission. We don't care. You get into Georgetown. Nope, you can't go there because you're bound to us now.
Yeah.
Like we would maybe sue you to enforce this if you did try to go to Georgetown. Or we would just call Georgetown and say, hey, they have a binding commitment with us. And Georgetown would have to not admit you then.
Yeah.
Wow. Rankings? GW's U.S. News rankings have fluctuated within a 21-point range since 2010. But that's not enough to trigger our 2x rule. What does Eric mean by that?
Yeah, if you take the lower ranking and you double it, and the higher ranking is still lower than that doubling, then the ranking has not changed enough to pay attention to.
Eric says the last 2 years haven't been kind. They've dropped from 25th in 2022 down to 41st in 2024. Eric speculates maybe they're facing some local competition. George Mason, meanwhile, has climbed from 45th to 28th in the last 5 years. They basically swapped places with George Mason.
Wow, that's interesting. Yeah, because GW is always seen as number 2 in the local region. So you had Georgetown, GW, and then, George Mason. But now George Mason seems to be in number 2.
Some salty Redditors speculate that U.S. News has had it out for GW since 2012, when it was revealed that GW, the university, not the law school, had inflated the high school grades of its incoming students for more than a decade.
I doubt that they tweaked their algorithm specifically to penalize GW, but okay.
Why would they specifically tweak their algorithm to penalize GW for something that happened at the university, not at the law school?
And happens in a lot of places. Like you're just...
Yeah. Eric says it's hard to see anything in GW Law's historical data that would explain their drop in the rankings. I compared their big law placement today to what it was in 2015 when GW was ranked 20th and saw little difference. So it's probably just a case of, quote, the rankings are dumb. And that we do need to re-emphasize. You almost never, I mean, we do talk about the T14 or the T10 or, top 3 or whatever. But when you get outside of those highly, highly ranked schools, the rest of the rankings are just basically meaningless.
Yeah, well, look,
you should be looking at
changing.
Job placement.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Look how much they change. Can the reality at these schools possibly change that much? Like the alumni network has not changed.
Yeah.
The location of the school has not changed. The leadership of the school has probably not changed. The key faculty has not changed. Nothing has changed about this school. None of the program, very few, nothing. You ever met like an old professor?
Yeah.
They don't change. So these schools don't actually change.
Yeah.
But the rankings fluctuate wildly. And what's that? Well, that's US News trying to sell magazines.
Yep.
A few facts from Wikipedia. You want to read this?
Yeah. GW Law was founded in 1865. Okay. It's the oldest law school in Washington, D.C. It was actually first established in 1820, 3 years after Harvard, but closed in 1826 due to low enrollment before reopening in 1865. Okay. Several Supreme Court justices have served on the faculty and have presided over its moot court.
So you got Justice Jackson coming from the Supreme Court to watch the moot court proceedings and, preside over the moot court, preside over the moot court proceedings.
Therefore, pay us $72K per year in tuition.
Yeah, exactly. So that you can have a selfie, or brag to your friends that, oh, so blessed to have Justice Jackson on campus with us today. And it's like, yeah, okay. If you're there for free, great. If you're there for a reasonable price, great. Which they don't give so many full rides, right? I would be open to an argument where, oh, well, they gave me a 75th percentile grant. Maybe it's a good deal for me to go to this school. Yeah, that might be a fair price for you. When I say don't pay for law school, what I really mean is don't overpay for law school. And if you're getting a 75th percentile grant, then I don't think you're probably overpaying, at least not relative to, 75% of the people at the school.
Yeah.
Want to read more of this?
Yeah, it says GW has the oldest IP law program in the country. A GW alumnus wrote the patent for the Wright brothers flying machine in 1906. Okay, wow. Been around a long time.
Therefore, pay us $72,500 per year to attend the used to be second best law school in DC. Now it's the third best law school in DC. Well, fourth in the area if you count UVA.
Yep.
It's a regional law school. It has a good reputation in the DC area.
Yep.
It is a fungible law school, right? I mean, this just means fungible. The word fungible means basically
interchangeable,
replaceable.
Yeah.
Nothing special. You could find the same thing elsewhere, potentially at different prices. There are substitute goods in the market, in economist terms, for a school like George Washington. Are we saying do not go to George Washington?
No, but
we're
we're
saying avoid George Washington?
No, we're just saying if you go, make sure it's your best offer. In other words, take the price minus the discount they give you, see what the cost is, and then compare that to the costs of the other schools that you've been offered admittance to.
And one further step, compare also to no law school at all.
Yes. Yep.
When you get all your offers back, walking away is still on the table. I mean, we see people who underperform their cycle sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
This has happened with multiple of our team members.
Mm-hmm.
And we have seen better outcomes on a reapply, especially with different personal statements.
Mm-hmm.
So the numbers matter a lot, but if the numbers don't get you what you think you should be getting, then it is time to seriously reconsider your other documentation that you have provided, and you might have just led them to the wrong impression via the narrative that you're telling them about your application. And there's nothing wrong with walking away. Just reapply next cycle. Tell them a different story next year, possibly retake the LSAT and apply with even better numbers next year. But don't take a terrible offer just because it's your best offer.
So let's go to word of the week.
Okay.
Today is from Merriam-Webster's Word of the Day. I guess Eric gets that?
Yeah.
Okay.
I guess.
You wanna read it?
Delectation. Without any context at all, I would think that looks like delectable. And I think delectable means delicious.
Okay.
So delectation might be like enjoying something delicious, or it might be like making something delicious.
Mm-hmm.
Or it might have nothing to do with that, delectable, or
Sure.
it might not have anything to do with it, but it has a lot. Starts DELECTA.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
Delectable. Yeah.
it just seems so similar to that word.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, context.
Yeah.
The resort staff left a sampling of fine chocolate in our room for our delectation.
So it sounds like enjoyment. Enjoying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm going to say
Food.
it's specifically enjoyment of food
Okay.
or enjoyment of something delicious.
So is there a word delectating?
Delectating. Yeah. I got to just delectate my dinner first, and then I'll be right with you. Delectation is a formal word for a feeling of delight or enjoyment. It can also be used to refer to the source of such feelings. Oh, yeah. For lovers of art and architecture, Paris offers visitors a peerless abundance of delectations. Okay. This is a word that you likely will see in a overwrought Supreme Court brief. The justices sometimes love to get fancy and just use florid language for no purpose. But it just means to nom. It's to eat delicious things, or it could also be a delicious thing. You could call a chocolate old-fashioned donut a delectation, or I could leave a chocolate old-fashioned donut in your room for your delectation.
Delectation.
All
Okay.
right. Thanks, Eric.
Yeah, thank you. Be LSAT famous. Please ask questions or share news with us on our website. That's thinkinglsat.com, or on our socials at LSAT Demon. If you have questions about the LSAT Demon, email help@lsatdemon.com. Please check out our other podcast. That's LSAT Demon Daily. That was episode 487 of the Thinking LSAT podcast. Thanks all y'all for listening. Nice knowing you. Don't pay for law school.